Jungle.
Hello students, welcome to the fourth and final lecture of atomic structure. Now this is the part 4 of the lecture, and in the previous 3 lectures you have seen different type of things like starting from the atomic models of Rutherford and then the Bohr atomic model. We have seen that what the problems of Rutherford models were, how Rutherford model has some shortfalls regarding the orbits, the rotation of electrons in the orbits, right? And what were the merits of Rutherford, how Rutherford have done the alpha particle scattering experiment, that also we have seen. What were the conclusions from that experiment, how he had concluded the formation, the existence of isotopes and isobars, that also we have seen, and the his definitions regarding atomic number and mass number also we have seen, right? After that there comes the Bohr model. Now the Bohr model gives us a definite idea about the stationary orbits, that how the electrons are rotating in the fixed orbit, and as long as it rotates in that particular orbit, no change in its energy occurs. But whenever this electron, right, this electron moves from one orbit to the other orbit, how energy changes and how this change can be explained in terms of quantum, that also we have seen, right? So this was the main things that were present in the first lecture. After that we have seen the second lecture. Now in this second lecture what we have seen, basically there were multiple things like the calculation of radius, velocity and energy of electron, right? Whenever an electron is moving in an orbit, what is its radius, how its velocity changes, these things we have seen here, right? After that in that lecture only we have seen that how the atomic orbitals look like, what is s orbital, what is p orbital, what is d orbital, how they look and how they exist. So that clearly we have seen. Also how the electron moves in that particular orbitals, this also we have clearly understood, right? So this was in the second lecture. Now after the second lecture, in the third lecture there were details of quantum numbers, right? The 4 quantum numbers: principal quantum number, azimuthal quantum number, magnetic quantum number, spin quantum number. These 4 quantum number and their related details, everything, how this quantum number occurs, how we are going to find out the orbitals using this quantum number and their values, and how the position of electrons have to be delocated, right? That also we have seen from this quantum numbers. That's the third lecture, right? So after 1, 2 and 3, right, after these 3 lectures, here comes the fourth lecture, in which what are the highlights I will tell you, right? So basically after having detailed idea about the atom and its existence, in this particular lecture we are going to find out how the electron filling actually occurs in an atom, right? So in order to see how the electron filling occurs, we have to understand certain principles, right? And you people have studied in class 11 about these principles in detail, but also we will discuss it here once again regarding different figures, different examples. We will see that how the electrons get filled in a particular orbital, right? Now this starts from the Abao principle. The word Abao means building up or construction. So it will basically tell us how an atom is constructed, how it gets built up. That is, it will give us direct data that how and where the electrons will go when the energy will be in increasing order, right? Where the electrons will be filled, that data will be completely given by this Abao principle, right? Followed by Abao principle, we have Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. So after this there comes the Hund's rule, where we will see the concept of degeneracy and how the electrons are getting filled in the particular atom. But whenever degeneracy means, see, there are multiple orbitals having same energy, right? So when there are multiple orbitals having same energy, then their filling will occur in such a way that only if each electron, only if each orbital of same energy, or that is degenerate orbitals, have got 1 electron each, then only pairing of electrons in those orbitals will be allowed, otherwise not, right? So it is unfair if 4 friends are sitting here and you have 4 say suites, right? And if you give 2 suites to 2 persons and the other 2 will be vacant, then it is unfair, right? So these unfair things are not good, right? So how actually the filling occurs, if 4 persons are there, right, they will get 1 suite each, 1 laddu each, right? So similarly, if there are 4 degenerate orbitals, they will get your 1 electron each. Then if electron exits, then only pairing will be allowed, right? This is Hund's rule, so that will also be explained in this particular lecture. After that we will see Pauli exclusion principle, that is how the quantum number varies with the electrons, and how actually the electrons will be having, what type of quantum numbers the electron will be having, those electrons I am talking about which are residing in the same orbital, right? So that will be explained by Pauli exclusion principle. Now this will be followed by Heisenberg concept. Werner Heisenberg, a very well known physicist, right? So he has said that it is not possible to track the position and velocity of an electron, right? So how he has said that and why he has said that, that will be discussed briefly in this particular lecture. And finally, the Werner Heisenberg has worked with Erwin Schrödinger, right? Now these two scientists together have formulated the quantum mechanics, okay, about which you will be studying in detail in physics. I think you have studied already, right? Or else you will study. So basically in Schrödinger, how Schrödinger equation has been given, what is Schrödinger equation, right? What are the objects present in Schrödinger equation, and what is psi, what is the significance of psi, that things have been briefly discussed in this particular lecture, right? So see the lecture, enjoy it, and if there is any problem, discuss with me in the chat box or in the comment box, or either you can call me or message me or mail me, right? So whatever if problems are there, then we'll discuss it out. Don't worry about it, just go through the lecture in details, right? Here you go. So in this lecture we are going to see the details about Above principle, the Pauli exclusion principle, and the Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. Now if we see the details of all these three principles, they are basically directive towards the distribution of electrons inside an atom, that how the electrons are being filled in the atom one by one, that is briefly explained using these particular theories and principles, right? So if we go first towards the above principle, the main statement of the principle says that in the ground state of the atoms, the orbitals are filled in order of their increasing energies. Now the question arises, what is the meaning of this particular sentence, and what is the meaning of the word Abbau? So Abbau means building up, right? It is a German word which means building up or construction. So this particular principle will give us detailed data about how an atom is built, how the electrons are filled in the atom one by one, and how the atom is completed with these electrons, right? And this basically is dependent on the ground state of the atoms, and in order of increasing energies, the electron will be filled inside the atom, right? So you can see one structure in the screen where using which we can explain that which subshell, to which subshells the electrons will be filled one by one, right? So first, the most lowest energy subshell is the 1s subshell. Okay, so first electrons will enter 1s subshell. Now s orbital can have a vacancy of 2 electrons. So maximum 2 electrons can enter this 1s subshell, right? So first and the second electron will enter the 1s subshell accordingly. And after this 1s is filled, we will move to 2s orbital or 2s subshell, right? Then the next 2 electrons, the third and fourth electron, will enter the 2s subshell and the 2s orbital. Okay. This is so because the 2s is having more energy than 1s orbital. Now after the 1s is filled, 2s is filled, 2p is the next, right? A little bit more energy than 2s. So after 1s and 2s are filled, we will move to 2p orbital, right? Now 2p orbital will be filled one by one. So total 6 electrons can be accommodated in p orbitals. Accordingly, from the 5th to the 12th electron, this particular, not 12th, 10th electron, this particular p orbital will be filled, right? Now after 1s, 2s and 2p are filled, we will be getting 3s orbital, right? See, we are following the principal quantum numbers one by one. First, the first principal quantum number is 1s orbital. Then principal quantum number 2, we are having 2s and 2p orbitals. Now we are moving towards the principal quantum number 3, right? Now here we are having three type of subshells basically. one is 3s subshell, another is 3p subshell, third one is 3d subshell. Now accordingly, as per the increasing order of energy is considered, first 3s will be filled up, this will be followed by the 3p orbital. Okay, first 3s will be filled, then 3p will be filled, and accordingly then 3d will be filled, right? Now 3s will be filled, okay, fine. The 11th and 12th electron enters the 3s orbital. After the 3s gets filled up, then 3p will be filled, the next 6 electrons will go to 3p. But here the question arises that after 3p, which orbital will be filled, 3d or 4s? Now if we go by principal quantum number, yes, 3d should be filled. But what happens basically, if we follow above rule, that is the electrons will be filled in order of increasing energies, then 4s will come before 3d, right? First 4s will be filled, then 3d will be filled. Okay, so the order is like this: 1s, 2s, 2p, 3s, 3p, then 4s, then 3d. This is followed by 4p, 5s, 5p, 4f, 5d, 6p, 7s, and so on, right? Now if we want to remove electrons, here another question comes. If we want to remove electrons between 3d and 4s, suppose we are having two options, that electrons can be removed from 3d or electron can be removed from 4s, right? So which one will be preferable? Then we will see that first the electrons will move out from 4s orbital. Now again question will come that whenever electrons are moving inside, then it is going first to 4s, then to 3d. Then when it is moving out, why 3d will come second, why 4s will come first? See, above principle has described how the electrons will be filled, right? He has nothing to do with the process of ejection of electrons or how the electrons will be removed, right? So how electrons will move out, that above has not given in his principle. Moreover, why this happens, basically the reason is that whenever 3d gets filled, its energy gets lowered, right? Whenever an orbital will be filled, the attraction of that particular orbital filled with electrons with the nucleus will be more, right? So as 3d becomes filled gradually, the 3d will be attracted by the nucleus and its size will be smaller than that of 4s, because number of electrons is more in 3d than that in 4s, right? So whenever electrons are moving out, then first they will move out from the 4s orbital, and this will be followed by the 3d orbital, right? So this was all about the above principle. Now after above principle, we have two more principles. One is the Pauli exclusion principle and the other is the Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity, right? Now when the Pauli exclusion principle is considered, it was given by Wolfgang Pauli in 1926. And if we go for the statements of Pauli exclusion principle, it clearly says that no two electrons in an atom can have the same set of 4 quantum numbers, right? In other words, only 2 electrons may exist in same orbital, and these 2 electrons must have opposite spin. Now how we can explain this Pauli exclusion principle? It's very simple. Suppose let us take an example. Suppose we are taking 2px orbital, right? Now this 2px orbital, how many electrons it can contain? According to Bohr-Body scheme, it can have a maximum of 2 electrons, right? Now these 2 electrons present in 2px orbital, if we try to assign their quantum numbers accordingly, then what we are going to get? Principal quantum number for these 2 electrons residing in 2px orbital will be 2, right? This will be followed by the azimuthal quantum number. For p orbital, the azimuthal quantum number is 1. So n equals to 2, L equals to 1. Now for px, ml is plus 1, that also we know. So 3 quantum numbers are same for these 2 electrons, pair of electrons, right? But whenever it comes for the 4th quantum number or the ms, right, spin quantum number, then we will see that if one electron is having plus half, the other must have minus half, right? That is what is being explained in Pauli exclusion principle, that no 2 electrons in an atom can have the same set of 4 quantum numbers. Yes, every electron will have different set of quantum numbers. Also it is denoted that only 2 electrons can exist in the same orbital, and these 2 electrons must have opposite spin. If one is having plus half, the other must have minus half, right? So this is what Pauli exclusion principle is saying. Next we are having Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. So what is basically explained by Hund's rule? First we will go for the statements and then we will explain it one by one, right? But in Hund's rule there is something important we should discuss before we start the statement. That is, Hund was the person to apply a word, right? That word is called degenerate. Okay, now degenerate means same energy. Suppose px, py and pz, these three are called degenerate orbitals. What do you mean by that? It means px, py and pz are having same energy. Okay, that is why they are called degenerate orbitals, right? Now the statement of Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity is like this, that pairing of electrons in the orbitals belonging to the same subshell does not take place until each orbital belonging to that subshell has got one electron each, right? That is the singly occupied. Now we will explain this in terms of electrons, but just try to imagine that three friends, you and two of your friends, you have gone to a restaurant, right, at 10 p.m. in the night. You went to the restaurant and you asked for some food, right? You have asked for 2 chapatis and some sabji, okay, that you have asked for, right? Now accidentally the shopkeeper, the restaurant person, the cook, he replies that only we have 4 chapatis at this time. Now you have ordered 6 chapatis, so we are making the rest too, but you start with this 4 only, right? Now how this restaurant owner or cook or whatever is going to distribute 4 chapatis among 3 persons, among 3 of you, right? What should be the arrangement? Should it be like this, that Mr. A is getting 2, Mr. B is getting 2 and Mr. C has got none? Will it be correct? Or else if it is like this, that A is getting nothing, B and C are getting 2 each, or if A and C are getting 2 each, B is getting nothing, that will be totally inappropriate, right? So what is appropriate? That Mr. A is getting 1, Mr. B is getting 1, Mr. C is getting 1, right? Now if the number of chapatis is more than that of the number of persons, then that can be repeated. So I have said that 4 chapatis are there. So after 1 is given to A, 1 is given to B and 1 is given to C, then the 4th one may be given to A or B or C, right? Because all 3 of them are same. All 3 are having same energy. So that is what Hund's is saying in his rule, that suppose let us just eradicate, just remove these 3 of your friends including you by the orbitals px, py and pz. Just try to imagine you 3 are nothing but px, py and pz. Now I have 4 electrons with me. Now if I am just supplying these electrons, first what I will give, what I will do, I will give 1 electron to px, 1 to py and 1 to pz. After that, the 4th electron whatever I am having, I will give either to px or to py or to pz, right? So this is what will happen in accordance to Hund's rule of maximum multiplicity. In other words, Hund have said that if we have different orbitals of same energy, which according to Hund's the term was degenerate orbitals. If we are having degenerate orbitals, then pairing will be allowed, pairing is possible, pairing of electrons definitely is possible only if each of the degenerate orbitals, each and every one of the degenerate orbitals have got at least 1 electron, right? Otherwise pairing is not possible. You cannot do like this, that 1 electron, 1 orbital is completely empty and some other orbital is paired, right, has got 2 electrons. It is not possible in accordance to Hund's rule, right? So these 3 are the rules, and according to these 3 rules we can go for the electronic configuration of elements. Now you know the details of electronic configuration, so I am not going into the details, and there is a diagram for the above rule which you have seen, right? It explains that Hund's rule and Pauli solution principle also we have discussed here briefly, right? Now next what we have, next we are having de Broglie equation and Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, right? Now what de Broglie have said, Louis de Broglie was a scientist and he was doing some work regarding this wave and particle, right? Dual behavior of matter was explained by de Broglie in his equation. Now what is this dual behavior of matter? See, several scientists have worked and it was found that matter will behave both as a wave as well as a particle, right? So it will be having wave nature as well as particle nature. Okay, now de Broglie has given an equation which is lambda equals to h by mv, which you are seeing on your screen, right? According to this particular equation, lambda is inversely proportional to m, means wavelength is inversely proportional to mass. That means if mass of a body is higher, then its wavelength will be less. If mass of a body is less, then its wavelength will be more, right? Now, more wavelength means nothing but significant wavelength. So if you want to calculate wavelength of yourself, right, you will not get a significant answer because your mass is huge. But if you want to collect the wavelength of an electron, then you will be getting a normal answer because the mass of electron is very less, right? That is what was explained by Louis de Broglie. So after de Broglie, another scientist, Werner Heisenberg, a German physicist, in 1927, he stated the uncertainty principle, which we people know as Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, right? Now, if we go for the statement of this Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, we will see it is stated that it is impossible to determine simultaneously and precisely the exact position and exact momentum or velocity of a microscopic moving charge particle like an electron, right? So basically, if you are trying to locate an electron, right, that yes, at this point of time, say at 6 p.m. And 02 seconds, right, at this time the electron will be present in this particular position, right? So when you will try to locate it, you will see that its position will be dislocated. Means electron is very, very small. We cannot see by our own eyes or even by properly by a microscope, because electron cannot be seen directly. You can only see the electron clouds, right? So whenever we want to locate the electron, whatever time is needed to locate it, right, by that time the electron will move to some other place. So it is very, very difficult, almost impossible, I will say rather, to determine the position of an electron. If the position of an electron cannot be determined accurately, then the velocity of electron can never be determined accurately, because without the position being known, how the velocity of the particle will be understood, right? It is not possible. Also, both position and momentum and velocity are impossible, and this particular electron, whenever it is moving, right, we can never designate in which particular direction it is moving and in which particular position it is staying, right? So there are several novels, like one very important and popular novel, Hajabadala, of Sukumar Rai, one of the most famous authors, right? In his novel, he have explained about a character called Gecho Dada, right? So that person was also like electron, okay? That whenever you are thinking that yes, he is there, you will go there, you will see by that time he is moved to somewhere else, right? So electron is a very, very fast moving particle, and you will be unable to locate its position, right? That is what Heisenberg is saying. So if we cannot locate the exact position and momentum of electron, then what we need to do? We need to just change the statements of exact position and exact momentum by the precise position or the given position. So what we will say? We will say an electron occupies a given position and it has a given momentum or velocity, right? Now this can be explained using the equation of Heisenberg, that is delta x delta p greater than equal to h by 4 pi, right? Using this particular equation, there are several numericals that we can solve. Suppose in a game of cricket, suppose if one bowler is bowling and a batsman is trying to hit the ball, then what is the probability of the bat hitting the ball, right? Or what is the probability of the ball hitting the bat? That is what we can find using Heisenberg uncertainty principle. But the data will be somewhat different from that of the electron, because the ball has much more mass compared to that of the electron, right? Now Bohr model ignores this dual behavior of matter, right? And Bohr model also cannot verify the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. So Bohr's model was what I can say modified by another scientist who actually was an Austrian physicist, right? That person is named Erwin Schrödinger, right? So Erwin Schrödinger worked with Heisenberg, right? And in 1926 together, these two persons independently, not together, independently, they developed the theory of quantum mechanics, which has led to huge discoveries, right? Now quantum mechanics, the things are not that easy. It is little bit difficult, but here what Schrödinger has done, he has given some simpler equations, and that equations we will discuss here. Okay. So Erwin Schrödinger basically has obtained the partial derivative function of the wave function, where he introduced a new parameter which is called psi. Now psi is actually a Greek word and the spelling is PSI, right? It looks like a trident, as you can see in the screen. Now whenever I am saying trident and I am saying Greek, you might be thinking about Poseidon, but this trident has nothing to do with the Greek god of oceans, Poseidon. Rather, this trident, or psi to be exact, it denotes wave function. Now whenever we are talking about waves, we can say that a wave has both crest as well as trough, right? It is a general characteristic that a complete wave will be having one crest which will be above the average line and one trough which will be below the average line. Now if the crest is considered to be the positive half of that wave, then the trough would be considered as the negative half of that wave. So what Erwin Schrödinger has done, after his calculations, he has shown that the wave function psi will be similar to that of the probability of finding an electron in a region around the nucleus. That means psi will denote the probability of finding an electron in a small region around the nucleus inside the atom, right? Now one problem arised that wave function can have both positive and negative values, as I have told you already, but psi, that is the probability of finding an electron, can either be 0 or positive, but it can never be negative. Now, suppose, see, I am just try to imagine with the help of an example. Suppose I'm just going to your house to find you, right, to catch you up. So I am going to your house, right? Now there are two possibilities. Possibility number one, you will be in your house and I'll just grab you. Possibility number two, you are missing from your house and I am not getting you, right? So the first possibility, whenever I am getting you, that if that is 1, then the second possibility, when I am not getting you, it will be 0. But it cannot happen that I was going to your house to just catch you. Now I was unable to meet you, so I've got hold of someone else. It is not possible, right? Or for example, you are just going somewhere to buy something, then also this example can also be used for this particular thing. So the matter of fact is that probability of finding something can be 0 or positive, but it can never be negative, right? Probability can never be negative. It can be either 0 or positive. Everybody knows from the knowledge of mathematics, right? So the concept of using psi as the probability of finding an electron around the nucleus was at the verge of question, right? Then alternatively, the scientists came out with one solution. What the solution was, they stated that we can take psi square as the probability of finding an electron around the nucleus. Now if we make psi square, then it will always have positive values, right? Then there is no problem of using it for the probability of finding an electron. Yes. So we will discuss about psi, but before that let us move to Schrödinger's wave equation. As you can see, the equation is right in front of you on the screen. Okay, so this is actually the time independent Schrödinger wave equation, and whatever the parameters are, what is E, what is V, what is mv square, you know it very well, and still it is also written there on the screen, right? Now there are some functions of psi which we must know, right? That is, psi must be continuous, psi must be finite, psi should always be single valued, and the probability of finding electron, just whatever I said few moments ago, it may be either equal to 1 or maybe 0, right? It can never be negative. Always we should keep these 4 things in our mind, right? So let us summarize the whole lecture. Now in this lecture 4 of atomic structure, the full and final lecture of atomic structure, what we people have seen, we have seen how an electron enters an atom as per the energy considerations, and this was explained using above principle. Then the filling of electrons, the singlet electrons, right, that degenerate orbitals will get 1 electron each. That concept was given by Horns. After that, Pauli exclusion principle have clearly stated that each and every electron should have 4 different quantum numbers. By this I am not saying that 4 quantum numbers will be all different. No. If 3 quantum numbers are same, at least they must vary in the spin quantum number. That is what Pauli has said. After Pauli exclusion principle, it was followed by Werner Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, where Heisenberg have said that it is not possible to determine the exact position and exact momentum of an electron, and the precise statements of position and momentum should be replaced by the statements of probability, that an electron occupies a given position and a given momentum, that we can say. Okay, this was followed by Erwin Schrodinger's wave equation and the significance of psi and psi square, right? So this was all about the 4th lecture, and this was all about atomic structure of your BTech course, right? Now if you have any questions, then you just jot it down. You go through this lecture carefully and try to answer the questions that are given at the end of this lecture, okay? And whatever problems you can write in the comment box, or you can discuss with me. My details you already know it, right? It has been also provided in the lectures, right? So thank you so much and stay tuned, and in the next lecture we will start periodic table, that is periodicity. Okay, so till then, have a great time with atomic structure. Thank you.